From Washington to Raleigh, economic development and business priorities were front and center this week, with federal leaders weighing in on trade and taxes and state lawmakers hitting a major legislative deadline. There's plenty to report that affects our business community. You're watching the Matthews Area Chamber Advocacy Update, sponsored by Atrium Health. I'm Brian Francis, and it's May 12th, 2025. First, I was in Washington, D.C. this week for an economic development summit hosted by Senator Tom Tillis and Representative Richard Hudson. We heard from both Senators Tillis and Budd, a panel including 13 of North Carolina's 14 House members, and administrative representatives from EPA, the Department of Transportation, and others. From our elected representatives, the big topics were the same ones that get the press coverage: trade and taxes, though opinions seemed to differ about how much short-term economic pain was necessary and therefore tolerable in order for long-term sustainability. I was left with the impression that while individual members had opinions on tariffs, taxes, spending, and national debt, Washington is far from agreement on how to prioritize, and business voices can still influence the final outcome. Turning now to state government, this past week was crossover week, a key deadline in the General Assembly. In most cases, a bill must pass either the House or the Senate by the state in order to remain eligible for consideration in the second half of the session. While this is an important milestone, it's not necessarily the end of the road for bills that didn't meet the deadline. Language can still move forward by being added to the budget, included in an eligible bill that did pass, or through other mechanisms like adding an allocation to the bill. In short, bills may be down, but they're not always out. In fact, I've heard one legislative veteran suggest that crossover exists really only to scare the freshmen. Here are three bills of interest to the business community that did meet the crossover deadline. First, House Bill 909 establishes a state infrastructure bank board to provide loans and financial assistance for transportation, water, sewer, and other infrastructure projects. It could become an important new tool for local governments, especially for multi-jurisdictional or regional projects. It supports a broad shift towards diversified funding, something the Chamber has identified as a priority. As traditional revenue sources like the gas tax continue to decline, this kind of flexible financing tool could help ensure our infrastructure keeps pace with growth and business needs. Now, the new board will have authority to partner with the private sector, prioritize regional projects, and set terms that influence long-term development. House Bill 414 aims to give equal credit for community college courses taken through the Career and College Promise program by high school students. It aligns certain college courses with high school graduation requirements and removes the Math 3 graduation requirement unless specifically needed for a student's career plan. This creates more flexible pathways for workforce readiness and could encourage more students to pursue career-oriented education early on. And Senate Bill 484 expands existing workplace violence laws to include protections against mass picketing that blocks access to businesses or transportation routes. While it explicitly excludes peaceful protests and labor activities protected under federal law, it may help employers seek legal remedies in situations involving threats, harassment, or obstruction. The intent is to balance public safety and private access with constitutional rights. That's all for today. We'll continue tracking these and other policies that could impact your business in Matthews. Until next time, I'm Brian Francis, and this has been the Matthews Area Chamber Advocacy Update, sponsored by Atrium Health.